My name is Bernice Thompson, and I'm 79 years old. I immigrated to this country from Jamaica when I was 23 years old, speaking English with a thick accent that some people found charming and others found difficult to understand. I worked as a housekeeper for wealthy families for 46 years, cleaning their homes while they conducted business, had meetings, and lived their lives around me as if I were furniture. I retired with $495,000 in savings, a paid-off house, and a secret that most people who employed me never knew. I understood every single word they said, even when they assumed I didn't. Which is why what happened 2 months ago at my grandson Terrence's house should have been my first warning, but it took me too long to realize what I was hearing. I was visiting Terrence and his wife Shauna for Sunday dinner. They'd invited me over, said they wanted to spend time with me, told me how much they missed seeing me regularly. I was happy to go. Terrence was my oldest grandson, and I loved him dearly. After dinner, I was sitting in their living room, resting my eyes. I'd had a long week and was feeling tired. Terrence and Shauna were in the kitchen, talking while they cleaned up. They were speaking in normal voices, not whispering, not being secretive, just having a conversation they assumed I couldn't follow. That's when I heard Shauna say, "Your grandmother doesn't understand what we're talking about anyway. She barely speaks English. We could discuss the whole thing right in front of her and she wouldn't know what we were saying." Terrence laughed. "Yeah, Grandma's sweet, but she's not really aware of what's going on around her. I mean, she's old. She probably doesn't even remember we're here half the time." I sat perfectly still in that living room chair, my eyes closed like I was sleeping, listening to my grandson and his wife discuss me like I was a confused old woman who couldn't understand English. But here's what they didn't know. My accent might be thick, but my comprehension is perfect. I understand every word of English spoken around me. I always have. And when people assume I don't understand, they say things they'd never say if they knew I was listening. Shauna continued, "So we're agreed. We tell her the house needs major repairs. Foundation issues, roof damage, electrical problems. We convince her it's too expensive for her to fix and too dangerous for her to stay there. Then we offer to let her move in with us while we handle the repairs. Once she's out of the house, we can sell it and use the money." "And she'll never know the difference," Terrence said. "Grandma doesn't understand property values or real estate. We tell her we sold it to pay for the repairs, give her some small amount of money, and keep the rest. She won't question it because she doesn't understand how any of this works." "How much do you think the house is worth?" "At least $380,000, maybe more. The neighborhood has gotten really desirable. Developers are buying up properties. We could probably get $400,000 if we time it right." "And your grandmother paid it off years ago, right? So there's no mortgage." "Right, it's free and clear. All that equity just sitting there while Grandma lives in a house she can't maintain. It makes sense for us to handle it for her." "When do we tell her about the repairs?" "Next week. I'll bring someone over, maybe my friend Carlos, and have him look around the house making concerned noises. Point out problems that don't really exist. Get Grandma worried. Then we swoop in with the solution." They assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation. They spoke in clear English, in normal voices, right in the next room from where I was sitting. They assumed that because I speak with an accent, because I'm elderly, because I worked as a housekeeper instead of in an office, I wouldn't comprehend what they were planning. But I understood every single word. And what I heard was my own grandson planning to trick me out of my house, the house I'd worked 46 years to buy and pay off, by lying about repairs it didn't need and stealing the equity I'd built over decades. They assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation, but I did. I understood perfectly. And that understanding was about to save me from losing everything I'd worked for while teaching my grandson a lesson about underestimating people based on how they speak. But before I tell you what I did after hearing Terrence and Shauna's plan, before I reveal how I used their assumption against them, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. Click it now. Then smash that like button, because this story is going to show you why judging someone's intelligence by their accent is a terrible mistake. Turn on those notifications. that bell icon. Because you need to hear what happened when I let my grandson think I didn't understand English while I planned my response to his scheme. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. What city? What state? What country? I want to know who's here with me today. Because what I discovered by understanding a conversation my grandson assumed I couldn't follow, about what he was planning to do to my home and my money, it's going to shock you just like it shocked me. And it taught me that sometimes people's prejudices about how you speak are the best weapon you can use against them. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you about my life, my relationship with Terrence, and how I came to be sitting in that living room chair, pretending not to understand while my grandson plotted to steal my house. To understand what happened, you need to understand my journey and how people have underestimated me my entire life. I was born in Kingston, Jamaica in 1946. I grew up poor. My father was a fisherman. My mother took in laundry. We had enough to eat, but nothing extra. I went to school through age 16, then started working to help support my family. When I was 23, I married a man named Winston Thompson. He'd gone a work visa to come to the United States. 6 months after he arrived, he sent for me. I came to this country with one suitcase, speaking English with a thick Jamaican accent, knowing no one except my husband. Winston and I both worked hard. He worked in construction. I started cleaning houses. We lived in a tiny apartment and saved every penny we could. The families I worked for were wealthy. Doctors, lawyers, business executives. They'd hire me to clean their homes, and I'd arrive early in the morning, do my work quietly, and leave in the evening. While I cleaned, they'd have conversations around me, business deals, family drama, personal secrets. They spoke freely because they assumed I didn't understand. Some would speak more slowly to me, using simple words like I was a child. Bernice, you clean kitchen today, yes? Use the soap, make it very clean. I'd nod and smile. Yes, ma'am, I clean very good. They'd pat my shoulder like I was a pet who'd learned a trick. But here's what they didn't know. I understood every word they said. My accent was thick, yes. My grammar wasn't always perfect when I spoke, but my comprehension was excellent. I'd gone to school in Jamaica where we learned British English. I could read, write, and understand complex ideas perfectly well. I just spoke with an accent, and people heard that accent and assumed I was stupid. Over the years, I heard everything. I heard one family plan to hide assets during their divorce. I heard another family discuss firing an employee unfairly. I heard secrets, lies, schemes, all because they thought the Jamaican housekeeper couldn't possibly understand what they were saying. I never said anything, never revealed that I understood, because understanding without people knowing you understand is powerful. It lets you see who people really are when they think you're not smart enough to judge them. Winston and I saved aggressively. We both worked multiple jobs. Winston would work construction during the day, then do maintenance work at an apartment building at night. I'd clean houses during the day, then clean office buildings in the evening. We had one son, Marcus. We raised him to work hard, to value education, to respect where he came from. Marcus did well in school, went at college on scholarships, became an accountant. When Marcus was 25, Winston died. Heart attack. He was only 51 years old. I was devastated, but I kept working, kept saving, kept building the life Winston and I had dreamed of. By the time Marcus got married and had children, I'd saved enough to buy a small house. Nothing fancy, a 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood that was a bit rundown but safe. I paid cash for it, $85,000, my pride and joy. A house I owned outright with no mortgage, no landlord, no one who could take it from me. Marcus had 3 children, Terrence, Angela, and Michael. I was close to all of them when they were young. I'd babysit, help with homework, tell them stories about Jamaica. But as they got older, I noticed something. They were embarrassed by my accent, especially Terrence. When Terrence was in high school, he had friends over once. I greeted them at the door. "Hello, you are Terrence's friends? Come in, come in." After they left, Terrence pulled me aside. "Grandma, when my friends are here, can you just not talk? They have trouble understanding you. It hurt, but I understood. Teenagers are embarrassed by everything about their families. I thought he'd grow out of it. But he never did. Even as an adult, Terrence would speak to me slowly, using simple words, like I was a child who couldn't grasp complex ideas. Grandma, you need to pay your electric bill. Understand? Electric bill. The paper that comes in the mail, you take it to the bank. Give them money. Okay. Yes, Terrence, I understand. I pay my bills every month. Good, good. Just making sure you remember. He never asked if I needed help. He just assumed I did. Assumed I was confused, incapable, in need of constant guidance. Over the years, my neighborhood changed. The rundown area where I'd bought my house for $85,000 became desirable. Young professionals moved in. Old houses were renovated. Property values soared. My house was now worth about $380,000, maybe more. I knew this because I paid attention. I read the real estate section of the newspaper. I noticed the for sale signs and the prices people were asking. But I never mentioned it to my family. Never told them I understood property values had increased. Let them assume I didn't know what my house was worth. About a year ago, Terrence started visiting more frequently. He'd drop by unannounced, look around my house, make comments about things that needed fixing. Grandma, this roof looks old. When did you last have it checked? I don't remember, Terrence. You need to get it inspected. Old roofs can be dangerous. Okay, Terrence, you help me. Yeah, Grandma, I'll help you, don't worry. He'd walk around, pointing at things. This electrical outlet looks loose. The foundation might have cracks. The water heater is probably ancient. Each time I'd nod and agree. Yes, yes, the house is old. Things break. Grandma, you might need to think about moving. This house is too much for you to maintain. Maybe you should sell it and move into a smaller place. Or move in with me and Shauna. We have room. I like my house, Terrence. I live here many years. I know, Grandma, but think about it. The house is falling apart. It's not safe for you. But my house wasn't falling apart. I maintained it carefully. I had reliable contractors who did repairs when needed. My roof was fine. My foundation was solid. My electrical was up to code. Terrence was building a narrative, creating a story that my house was in terrible condition. And I realized he was doing it for a reason. He wanted me to believe the house was worthless, dangerous, in need of expensive repairs I couldn't afford. But why? That's what I couldn't figure out. Until that Sunday dinner when I sat in the living room chair and heard Terrence and Shauna discuss their plan. They were going to lie to me about my house needing major repairs. They were going to scare me into moving out. Then they were going to sell it and keep the money, my $380,000 in equity that I'd built over decades of hard work. And they thought they could get away with it because they assumed I wouldn't understand what they were doing. Assumed I didn't comprehend property values, real estate, or the scheme they were planning. They assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation, but I did, every word, every detail, every part of their plan to steal my house. And as I sat in that chair, eyes closed, listening to them plot, I made a decision. I would let them think I didn't understand. I would play the role they expected, the confused immigrant grandmother who didn't comprehend complex things. And while they thought I was clueless, I would build my own plan. A plan to protect my house, expose their scheme, and teach my grandson that underestimating people because of how they speak is a mistake he'd regret for the rest of his life. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. After that Sunday dinner at Terrence's house, I went home and did something I'd done many times before when people underestimated me. I documented everything. I had a notebook where I'd been writing down Terrence's visits and comments about my house. I added what I'd heard that evening, every detail of their conversation about faking repairs, selling my house, and keeping the money. Then I started preparing for what was coming. Because if Terrence was going to bring someone over to inspect my house and lie about problems, I needed to know the truth about my house's actual condition. I called my regular contractor, a man named James Rodriguez who'd been doing repairs for me for 15 years. James knew I understood English perfectly. We'd had many detailed conversations about construction, materials, and costs over the years. James, I need you to do a complete inspection of my house. Roof, foundation, electrical, plumbing, everything. I need a written report documenting the actual condition. Is something wrong, Mrs. Thompson? Not with the house, but someone's going to try to tell me there's something wrong. I need proof that there isn't. I understand. I'll come by tomorrow. James spent 6 hours inspecting every inch of my house. When he finished, he gave me a comprehensive report. Mrs. Thompson, your house is in excellent condition. The roof was replaced 8 years ago and has at least 15 more years of life. The foundation is solid, no cracks, no settling issues. The electrical was updated 6 years ago and meets all current codes. The plumbing is in good shape. Your water heater is only 3 years old. There are some minor cosmetic things. You could use a fresh coat of paint in a few rooms. The kitchen cabinets are dated, but structurally and mechanically, this house is sound. Can you put all that in writing, with photographs? Already did. Here's your copy. Mrs. Thompson, whoever told you this house has problems is either incompetent or lying to you. They're lying. James, I need one more favor. When someone comes to inspect my house in the next week or two, someone who's going to point out problems that don't exist, can you be available to come over afterward and document that those problems aren't real? Absolutely. You call me the minute they leave and I'll be right over. 3 days later, Terrence called. Grandma, I've been worried about your house. I talked to my friend Carlos, he's a contractor, and he said he'd come take a look. Make sure everything's safe. Is tomorrow afternoon okay? I made my voice sound grateful and a little confused. Oh, Terrence, you are so good to me. Yes, tomorrow is good. What time? Around 2 o'clock. I'll come with him, we'll check everything. Okay, baby, I make you lunch. No, Grandma, we'll just look at the house. You don't need to cook. Okay, I see you tomorrow. The next afternoon, Terrence arrived with a man he introduced as Carlos. Carlos was young, maybe 30, and he looked uncomfortable. Grandma, this is Carlos. He's going to look around the house and tell us what needs fixing. I smiled and nodded. Thank you, Carlos. You want tea? Coffee? No, thank you, ma'am. I'll just look around. I sat in my living room while Terrence and Carlos walked through the house. I could hear them talking. Carlos pointed at things randomly. This ceiling. Yeah, there might be water damage here. There was no water damage. I'd had the roof inspected 3 days ago. The foundation. I'm seeing some cracks. Could be serious. There were no cracks. James had photographed the entire foundation. The electrical panel looks old. Probably not up to code. Could be a fire hazard. My electrical was updated 6 years ago, and James had confirmed it exceeded code requirements. After about 30 minutes, they came back to the living room. Carlos looked relieved to be finished. Terrence looked serious. Grandma, we need to talk. Carlos found some problems, big problems. I made my face look worried. Problems? What kind of problems? The roof has water damage. The foundation has cracks. The electrical is dangerous. Grandma, this house isn't safe. You can't stay here. But this is my house. I live here a long time. I know, Grandma, but it's not safe anymore. The repairs are going to cost a lot of money, maybe $80,000 or $100,000. Do you have that kind of money? I shook my head. No, I have savings, but not so much. That's what I thought. Grandma, here's what we should do. You move in with me and Shauna for a while. We'll sell the house and use the money to pay for the repairs. Then we'll find you a nice apartment. Smaller, easier to manage. What do you think? I let my face show confusion. Sell my house, but Terrence, this is my home. I know, Grandma, but the house is falling apart. We have to sell it before it becomes worthless. Trust me, okay? I'm trying to help you. I don't know, Terrence. I need to think. Don't think too long, Grandma. These problems are serious. The longer you wait, the worse they get. And the more expensive, we need to act fast. After Terrence and Carlos left, I called James immediately. They just left. Can you come over now? James arrived within 20 minutes. I told him everything Carlos had claimed was wrong with the house. James walked through, checking each thing Carlos had pointed out. He took photographs, he made notes. When he finished, he was angry. Mrs. Thompson, this is fraud. There's no water damage on that ceiling. That's just old paint that needs touching up. There are no foundation cracks anywhere. Your electrical panel is newer than the one in my own house. This Carlos person either has no idea what he's talking about, or he was deliberately lying to scare you. He was lying. My grandson paid him to lie. Your own grandson. Mrs. Thompson, that's terrible. What are you going to do? I'm going to let them think their plan is working. James, can you write up another report documenting that none of the problems Carlos mentioned actually exist, with photographs showing what he claimed versus what's really there? Already on it. Mrs. Thompson, you're gathering evidence. Are you going to report this to the police? No, I'm going to handle this my own way, but I need documentation of everything. Over the next week, Terrence called me every day, pressuring me to make a decision. Grandma, have you thought about moving? About selling the house? I'm thinking, Terrence, it's hard. This is my home. I know it's hard, Grandma, but it's not safe. I'm worried about you. What if the roof collapses? What if the electrical causes a fire? Grandma, I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you. His voice sounded so sincere, so concerned. If I didn't know he was lying, I might have believed he actually cared about my safety instead of my home equity. Okay, Terrence, I trust you. You are my grandson. You want what is best for me. I do, Grandma. I really do. So you'll move in with us. Let us handle selling the house. Yes, but Terrence, I need to understand. When you sell the house, what happens to the money? The money pays for the repairs, Grandma. Remember, the house needs $80,000 or $100,000 in repairs. But you said we sell the house before we fix it. So where does the repair money go? I could hear Terrence scrambling on the other end of the phone. He hadn't expected me to ask logical questions. Well, Grandma, we'll estimate what the repairs would cost. Then we subtract that from what we sell the house for. The rest is yours. How much you think the house will sell for? Honestly, Grandma, not much. The neighborhood isn't great. The house needs so much work. We might get $150,000 if we're lucky. After the repair costs, you'd probably have $50,000 or $60,000 left. We'll put that in the bank for you, for your expenses. My house was worth $380,000, minimum. Terrence was planning to tell me it sold for $150,000, give me $50,000, and pocket the remaining $330,000. But I didn't let my voice show that I understood his lie. Okay, Terrence, I trust you. You handle everything. Great, Grandma, great. I'll start the paperwork. We'll get you moved to our house next week. After I hung up, I called someone I'd been hoping I wouldn't need to call. My son Marcus, Terrence's father. Marcus and I had a complicated relationship. He'd done well in his career, made good money as an accountant, but he'd also become distant over the years. He'd visit occasionally, but mostly he was busy with his own life. Marcus, I need to talk to you about something serious, about Terrence. What about him, Mom? He's trying to steal my house. He's lying about it needing repairs, planning to sell it and keep the money. Mom, that's a serious accusation. Are you sure? Maybe you misunderstood. I didn't misunderstand anything. Marcus, I heard him and Shauna planning it. I heard every word. Mom, you're English. Sometimes you miss things. Are you sure you understood correctly? And there it was. My own son, suggesting I didn't understand English well enough to comprehend a conversation in my own language. Marcus, I understand English perfectly. I heard Terrence and Shauna plan to fake repair problems, scare me into selling and keep the equity. I've had my contractor inspect the house. There's nothing wrong with it. Terrence brought someone over to lie about problems that don't exist. I have documentation of everything. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You have documentation? Yes, a real inspection showing the house is in excellent condition. Photographs. A report from the fake inspector Terrence hired showing the lies he told. All of it documented. Mom, why didn't you tell Terrence you knew what he was doing? Because I wanted to see how far he'd go. And Marcus, he's going very far. He's planning to tell me the house is worth $150,000 when it's actually worth $380,000 or more. He's planning to give me $50,000 and keep the rest. That's fraud. Yes, it is. Marcus, what should I do? Let me talk to Terrence. Maybe I can straighten this out, make him understand he can't do this. He's your son, you talk to him. But Marcus, I'm not giving up my house. No matter what Terrence says, no matter what pressure he puts on me, I'm keeping my home. I understand, Mom. Let me handle this. 2 days later, Marcus called me back. Mom, I talked to Terrence. He denies everything. He says he's just trying to help you. He says the house really does need repairs and he's trying to protect you from making a bad decision. Did you tell him I have documentation? Yes, he says your contractor is probably just telling you what you want to hear. He says you're confused about the house's value. Mom, he's not going to back down. Then I'll have to handle it myself. Marcus, whose side are you on? I'm on the side of truth, Mom. If Terrence is trying to steal from you, that's wrong and I'll stop it. But I need to be sure. Can you show me your documentation? Come over tomorrow. I'll show you everything. Marcus came the next afternoon. I showed him James's inspection report with photographs. I showed him Carlos's false claims compared to the actual condition. I showed him real estate listings from my neighborhood showing comparable houses selling for $360,000 to $410,000. Marcus looked at everything carefully. He was an accountant. He understood numbers and documentation. Mom, you're right. Terrence is lying. The house is in good condition, and it's worth way more than $150,000. If he's planning to sell it and keep the difference, that's theft. So what do I do? You confront him. Show him you know what he's planning. Tell him you're not selling. And Mom, you need to make sure your house is protected legally. Do you have a will, a trust? I have a will. Everything goes to you and your sister equally. That's not enough. If something happens to you, if you get sick, if you need care, Terrence might try to get power of attorney and sell the house anyway. You need better protection. What kind of protection? Put the house in a living trust. That way, even if something happens to you, Terrence can't touch it without going through proper legal channels. I can help you set it up. Okay, we do that. But first, I need to tell Terrence I'm not selling. Do you want me there when you tell him? No, this is between me and my grandson. He thinks I'm too stupid to understand what he's doing. I want him to see that he was wrong. The next day, I called Terrence. Terrence, can you come to my house? I want to talk about selling. Sure, Grandma. I can come this afternoon. Are you ready to move? We'll talk when you get here. Terrence arrived with paperwork. Real estate listing agreements, moving company estimates, information about apartments he thought I should move into. He spread it all out on my kitchen table. Okay, Grandma, here's the plan. We list the house next week. I'm thinking we ask $165,000. That's high for a house that needs so much work, but maybe we'll get lucky. While the house is being shown, you move in with me and Shauna. Then once it sells, we'll find you a nice little apartment. 1 bedroom, easy to manage. What do you think? I looked at all his paperwork, then I looked at him. Terrence, I'm not selling my house. What? Grandma, we talked about this. The house isn't safe. The house is perfectly safe. I had it inspected by my regular contractor. The roof is fine. The foundation is fine. The electrical is fine. There is nothing wrong with my house. Terrence's face changed. Grandma, I don't think you understand. I understand everything. I understand you brought your friend Carlos over to lie about problems that don't exist. I understand you plan to tell me the house is worth $150,000 when it's really worth $380,000 or more. I understand you were going to give me $50,000 and keep the rest. Terrence, I understand all of it. Grandma, who's been telling you these things? Your contractor is lying to you. He just wants to keep getting work from you. Nobody told me anything. I heard you and Shauna planning it. At your house, after dinner 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in the living room. You were in the kitchen. You thought I was sleeping. You thought I wouldn't understand what you were saying. But I understood every word. Terrence's face went pale. You understood. Yes, you said I barely speak English. You said I don't understand property values. You said I'm old and not aware of what's going on. Terrence, you assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation. But I did. I understood everything. Grandma, I was just trying to help. Help yourself to my money. Terrence, this house is worth $380,000, not $150,000. I know this because I pay attention. I read the real estate section. I see what houses in this neighborhood sell for. You were planning to steal $330,000 from me and thought I was too stupid to notice. That's not what I was doing. Then what were you doing? Explain it to me. Explain why you lied about my house needing repairs. Explain why you brought Carlos over to point out problems that don't exist. Explain why you told me the house was worth $150,000 when you know it's worth much more. Terrence couldn't explain. He just stood there, caught in his lie. Terrence, I want you to leave my house, and I don't want you to come back. Grandma, you're making a mistake. You need help managing this house. I've been managing this house for 20 years without your help. I'll continue managing it. Now please leave. Grandma, I'm your grandson. You can't just cut me out of your life over a misunderstanding. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is you trying to steal from me because you thought I was too stupid to understand what you were doing. You assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation. You were wrong. Now leave. Terrence left, taking his paperwork with him. And I sat in my kitchen, shaking, not from fear, but from anger and sadness that my own grandson had tried to steal my home. They assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation because I speak with an accent, because I'm elderly, because I worked as a housekeeper instead of in an office. But I understood every word, and that understanding saved my house and exposed my grandson's greed. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 2 days after confronting Terrence, I got a phone call from Shauna. Her voice was sweet, concerned, the same voice she'd used when plotting to steal my house. Miss Bernice, Terrence told me what happened. I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Can I come over and talk to you, just the two of us? I knew what she was doing. Terrence had failed, so now Shauna was going to try. She'd come over, speak slowly to me, try to convince me I'd misunderstood everything. Okay, Shauna, you come tomorrow. She arrived the next afternoon with a box of pastries from an expensive bakery. Miss Bernice, I brought your favorites, the coconut tarts you like. I accepted the pastries, but said nothing. Shauna sat down at my kitchen table. Miss Bernice, Terrence is very upset. He says you think he was trying to steal from you, but that's not what was happening at all. Terrence loves you. He'd never hurt you. Then why did he lie about my house? He didn't lie, Miss Bernice. He was just concerned. Your house is getting old. Things break in old houses. Terrence was trying to help you before something bad happened. My house doesn't have problems. I had it inspected. Everything is fine. Well, maybe your inspector missed things. Miss Bernice, you have to understand. Contractors sometimes tell elderly people what they want to hear because they don't want to upset them. But Terrence really was worried. The roof, the foundation, these are serious things. I looked at Shauna carefully. She was still talking to me like I was a child, using simple words, speaking slowly, assuming I couldn't grasp what she was really saying. Shauna, I heard you and Terrence talking. At your house. You said I wouldn't understand because I barely speak English. You said I don't know property values. You plan to sell my house and keep the money. I heard everything. Shauna's sweet expression faltered. Miss Bernice, I think you misunderstood. I didn't misunderstand. You spoke in English. I understand English. You said Terrence should bring someone to point out fake problems. You said to tell me the house was worth $150,000 when you knew it was worth much more. Shauna, I understood every word. But Miss Bernice, you have such a strong accent. Sometimes language barriers. My accent doesn't affect my comprehension. I understand English perfectly. I always have. Shauna, you made a mistake. You assumed that because I speak differently, I think differently. You were wrong. Shauna tried a different approach. Okay, Miss Bernice, maybe we made some mistakes in how we approached this, but the truth is you do need help. This house is too much for you. You're almost 80 years old. Don't you want to live somewhere easier, where you don't have to worry about repairs and maintenance? I like my house. I'm keeping my house. But Miss Bernice, think about the future. What if you get sick? What if you fall and can't take care of yourself? Wouldn't it be better to sell now, while you can still make decisions and move somewhere safer? I make my own decisions. About my house, my money, my life. Shauna, I want you to leave now. Miss Bernice, please don't be stubborn about this. We're family. We're trying to help. You're trying to steal. There's a difference. Now leave my house. After Shauna left, I called Marcus again. Terrence sent Shauna over to try to convince me. She's still pushing for me to sell. Mom, they're not going to give up easily. That house represents a lot of money to them. You need legal protection. Have you thought more about the living trust I suggested? Yes, I want to do it. Can you help me? I'll set up an appointment with an estate attorney. We'll get your house protected so Terrence can't touch it, even if something happens to you. 3 days later, Marcus took me to meet with an attorney named Patricia Osei. She was a black woman in her 50s, professional and direct. Mrs. Thompson, your son explained the situation. Your grandson is attempting to defraud you out of your home equity. We need to make sure your assets are protected. Yes, I want to keep my house. I don't want Terrence to be able to sell it if something happens to me. We'll create a living trust. You'll transfer ownership of the house into the trust. You remain the trustee, which means you have complete control while you're alive and competent. But if something happens, if you become incapacitated, Marcus becomes the successor trustee instead of your grandson. The house stays in the trust and can't be sold without proper documentation and oversight. Okay, we do that. There's one more thing we should discuss, Mrs. Thompson. Your will. Who's currently listed as your beneficiaries? My son Marcus and my daughter Beverly, equally. They split everything when I die. And what about your grandchildren? I was going to leave them each something small, maybe $10,000 each. Given what Terrence has done, you might want to reconsider that. Mrs. Thompson, people who attempt fraud once often try again. If Terrence inherits anything from you, he might see it as validation that his scheme partially worked. I thought about that. You're right. Terrence gets nothing. Marcus and Beverly split everything. Marcus can decide if he wants to give anything to Terrence. That's not my decision anymore. Patricia drafted all the documents. I signed them, transferring my house into a living trust with Marcus as successor trustee. I updated my will, removing Terrence from any inheritance. And I added a document called a no contest clause, which meant if anyone challenged my will or trust, they'd automatically forfeit any inheritance. Mrs. Thompson, you're protected now. Your grandson can't sell your house. He can't challenge your estate plan without losing everything. You're safe. But I wasn't done protecting myself, because I knew Terrence and Shauna wouldn't stop just because I'd said no. They'd keep trying, keep pressuring, keep looking for ways to access my home equity. So I did something else. I started documenting everything they did and said. Over the next 2 weeks, Terrence called me 6 times. Each time I recorded the conversation on my phone. Grandma, I'm worried about you living alone. What if you fall? What if there's an emergency? Terrence, I'm fine. I've been living alone for 20 years. But Grandma, you're getting older. Things change. Please just think about moving in with us. We have plenty of room. You'd be safer. I'm safe in my own house. Are you sure? Grandma, I drive by your house sometimes and I see things that worry me. The yard isn't being maintained like it used to be. The gutters need cleaning. The paint is peeling. These are signs that the house is too much for you. My yard was fine. My gutters were clean. The paint wasn't peeling. Terrence was making things up, trying to build a narrative that I couldn't maintain my home. Terrence, my house is fine. Stop calling me about this. I'm just worried, Grandma. I love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't try to steal from me. I'm not trying to steal. Why can't you understand that I'm trying to help? Because I understand English perfectly, Terrence. I understood your plan. I understand you're still trying to convince me to give up my house. I understand everything. He'd get frustrated and hang up. Shauna tried a different approach. She started posting on social media about the challenges of caring for elderly family members who refuse help. My husband's grandmother is struggling to maintain her home, but she won't accept our help. It's so hard watching someone you love be stubborn about their independence when they really need assistance. How do you convince an elderly person to make smart decisions for their own safety? Her friends commented with sympathy and advice. You might need to get power of attorney. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions for them, even if they don't like it. Elder care is so difficult. Stay strong. Shauna showed me the post, thinking I wouldn't understand what social media was or what she was doing. Look, Miss Bernice, I posted about our situation. See what people are saying. They agree that you need help, that we should help you make decisions. You posted lies about me on the internet. They're not lies, Miss Bernice. You are struggling. You just don't realize it. I realize everything. Shauna, delete that post. But Miss Bernice, I'm just trying to get support. You're trying to make me look incompetent so people will support you taking my house. Delete it. She didn't delete it, so I did something she didn't expect. I created my own social media account and commented on her post. This is Bernice Thompson, the grandmother being discussed. I'm not struggling. My house is in excellent condition. My grandson and his wife tried to convince me it needed expensive repairs that don't exist so they could sell it and keep the money. I refused. Now they are posting false information online to make me look incompetent. I understand English perfectly. I understand what they are trying to do, and I am protecting myself and my property from their fraud. Shauna S post exploded. People started commenting, asking questions, taking sides. Some believed Shauna S version. Others believed mine. But what mattered was that Shauna S attempt to paint me as an incompetent old woman backfired completely. She called me furious. Miss Bernice, why did you comment on my post? You made me look terrible. You made yourself look terrible by lying about me. Shauna, I told you, I understand everything. That includes social media. But you don't even have an account. How did you? I created one. Marcus helped me. Shauna, you thought I was too old and too stupid to use the internet. You were wrong about that too. After that, the pressure from Terrence and Shauna decreased, but it didn't stop entirely. I started hearing from other family members. Terrence's sister Angela called. Grandma Bernice, Terrence told me what happened. I think you're being too hard on him. He really was trying to help. Angela, did Terrence tell you he planned to sell my house for $380,000? Tell me it sold for $150,000 and keep the difference. He said the house needed repairs. The house doesn't need repairs. I had it inspected. Angela, your brother lied to me and tried to steal my home. That's not helping. But Grandma, family should stick together. Can't you forgive him? Can your brother admit what he did was wrong? He says it was a misunderstanding. Then no, I can't forgive him because he's still lying. Angela, I understand what happened. I understand what your brother tried to do, and I'm protecting myself. I had similar conversations with other relatives. Some believed Terrence's version, that he was trying to help and I'd misunderstood. Others believed me but thought I should forgive him anyway because family is family. But I held firm. Because forgiving Terrence without him acknowledging what he'd done would just teach him that he could try to steal from me and face no real consequences. 6 weeks after I confronted Terrence, Marcus called with news. Mom, Terrence came to see me. He asked me to convince you to sell the house and split the proceeds with him. What did you say? I told him no. I told him the house is yours in a trust and he has no claim to it. Then he said something interesting. He said, "Dad, Grandma has all this money in that house and she's just wasting it. She could sell it and live comfortably in a smaller place. The equity is just sitting there doing nothing." He thinks my home equity is wasted because I'm not spending it. Exactly. He doesn't see it as your asset that you built through decades of work. He sees it as family money that's being hoarded. Mom, Terrence genuinely believes he has a right to your home equity. He doesn't. I know, but that's how he thinks. And Mom, I need to tell you something else. Terrence asked me if you have dementia, if you're competent to make decisions about your house. He's trying to build a case that you're not mentally capable. I had a cognitive evaluation done last week. Patricia suggested it. The doctor confirmed I'm completely competent. I scored in the 94th percentile for my age group. Good, keep that documentation, because Terrence isn't giving up. He's just changing strategies. Marcus was right. 2 weeks later, I got a visit from Adult Protective Services. A social worker named Daniel Chen came to my door. "Mrs. Thompson, we received a report of concern about your welfare. May I come in and speak with you?" "Yes, of course." Daniel came inside and looked around my clean, well-maintained house. He asked me questions about my daily activities, my health, my ability to care for myself. "Mrs. Thompson, the report claimed you're living in unsafe conditions, that your house is in disrepair and you're not able to maintain it properly. But I don't see any evidence of that." "That's because it's not true. My grandson filed that report. He's been trying to convince me to sell my house so he can access the equity. When I refused, he apparently decided to call you and claim I'm living in unsafe conditions." "I see. Mrs. Thompson, do you have documentation showing your house is properly maintained?" I showed Daniel the inspection reports from James, the photographs, the documentation that my house was in excellent condition. "Mrs. Thompson, this report is clearly false. Someone called in a fraudulent claim. I'm going to close this case as unfounded, and I'm going to note in my report that the complaint appears to have been made in bad faith." "Can you tell me who made the report?" "The report was anonymous, but based on what you've told me about your grandson's behavior, I'd guess it was him or his wife." After Daniel left, I called Marcus. "Terrence reported me to Adult Protective Services. They sent someone to investigate. The social worker confirmed the report was false." "Mom, this is harassment. Terrence is filing false reports trying to make you look incompetent." "What can I do?" "You document it. You keep records of every false claim, every attempt to undermine your competence, every bit of harassment. And if it continues, we'll need to consider getting a restraining order." "A restraining order against my own grandson?" "If necessary, yes. Mom, Terrence isn't going to stop. He sees your house as money that should be his. And he's willing to lie, manipulate, and harass you to get it. You need to protect yourself." I thought about that. About my grandson, the little boy I'd babysat, helped with homework, loved deeply, now harassing me and filing false reports because I wouldn't let him steal my house. "Okay, we document everything, and if he doesn't stop, we get the restraining order." That night, I sat in my house that I'd worked 46 years to buy, that I'd maintained carefully, that represented my independence and security, and I thought about everything that had happened. They assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation because I speak with an accent, because I'm elderly, because I worked as a housekeeper. But I understood every word of their scheme, and I'd protected myself by documenting everything, securing my assets legally, and refusing to be intimidated or manipulated. My grandson had underestimated me. He'd thought I was too stupid to comprehend what he was planning. He'd been wrong. And now he was learning that underestimating someone based on how they speak is a mistake that costs you far more than money. It costs you relationships, trust, and family. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 3 months after the Adult Protective Services visit, things seemed to quiet down. Terrence stopped calling. Shauna stopped posting on social media. I didn't hear from Angela or other family members pressuring me to sell. I thought maybe Terrence had finally given up. Maybe he'd accepted that I understood what he'd tried to do and that I wasn't going to let him steal my house. I was wrong. One Thursday morning, I received a certified letter. It was from a company called Senior Living Solutions. The letter said they were a care management service that had been contacted by my family due to concerns about my ability to live independently. They wanted to schedule a home assessment. I called Marcus immediately. Did you contact a company called Senior Living Solutions? No, Mom, what is this about? I read him the letter. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, Mom, this is Terrence. He's hired a company to evaluate you, probably hoping they'll recommend you move to assisted living. Don't let them in your house. Don't talk to them. This is another attempt to build a case that you're incompetent. What should I do? Call the company, tell them you didn't request their services and you're not interested. And Mom, we might need to escalate this. Terrence isn't stopping. I called Senior Living Solutions and told them I hadn't requested an evaluation and didn't want one. The woman on the phone was polite but persistent. Mrs. Thompson, your family is very concerned about you. They've paid for a comprehensive assessment. We just want to make sure you're safe and have the support you need. I don't need an assessment. I'm doing fine on my own. Mrs. Thompson, sometimes people don't realize they need help until it's too late. Your family loves you and wants what's best for you. Won't you at least let us do the assessment? It's free. Your family already paid for it. No, I don't want it. Please don't contact me again. But they did contact me again, 3 more times over the next week. Each time I refused. Finally, I told them, if you contact me one more time, I'm reporting this as harassment. They stopped calling, but 2 weeks later, something else happened. I came home from grocery shopping to find Terrence and Shauna in my driveway with a moving truck. They had boxes and packing materials spread out on my lawn. Grandma, Terrence called out when he saw me. Perfect timing. We're here to help you pack. We found you a wonderful assisted living facility. It's beautiful. You're going to love it. 1 bedroom, all your meals prepared, activities, social groups. It's exactly what you need. I walked up to them slowly, my groceries in hand. What are you doing at my house? We're helping you move, Grandma. The facility has an opening and we grabbed it before someone else did. You're moving in next week. I'm not moving anywhere. I never agreed to go to assisted living. Grandma, we've been over this. You can't stay here alone. It's not safe. We've already put down a deposit at the facility. $5,000, non-refundable, so you're going. You put down a deposit with whose money? With our money, Grandma. We're paying for it because we love you and want you safe. I looked at the moving truck, the boxes, their confident faces. They really thought they could just show up and force me to move. They thought I wouldn't resist. Thought I'd go along because I was too confused or too intimidated to fight back. Terrence, leave my property, now. Grandma, don't be difficult. We're doing this for your own good. I said leave. This is my house. I'm not moving. Get your truck off my driveway. Shauna stepped forward. Miss Bernice, we've already arranged everything. The facility is expecting you next week. We've paid the deposit. We've rented the truck. Just let us help you pack. I didn't ask for your help. I don't want your help. Leave my property or I'm calling the police. The police, Terrence laughed. Grandma, we're family. We're trying to help you. The police aren't going to do anything. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Yes, I need police at my house. My grandson is on my property with a moving truck, refusing to leave after I've asked him to go. Terrence's face changed. Grandma, you're calling the police on me, on your own grandson. You're trespassing. I asked you to leave. You refused. That's trespassing. The police arrived 15 minutes later. 2 officers, a man and a woman, listened as I explained the situation. These are my grandson and his wife. They showed up with a moving truck without my permission. I've asked them to leave my property multiple times. They refuse. The male officer turned to Terrence. "Sir, is this your property?" "No, but she's my grandmother. We're family. We're trying to help her." "Does she want your help?" "She needs help. She's elderly. She can't live alone safely." "That's not what I asked. Does she want your help?" "She doesn't understand what's best for her." The female officer interrupted. "Sir, this is her property. She's asked you to leave. You need to leave now." "But we've already paid for the moving truck. We've paid a deposit at the assisted living facility. We've done all this work." "That was your choice. But this is her property and she's asking you to leave. If you don't leave now, we'll have to arrest you for trespassing." Terrence looked at me with such anger in his eyes. "Grandma, you're making a huge mistake. You need help and you're too stubborn to accept it. When something bad happens to you, when you fall or have an emergency and there's no one there to help, don't blame us. We tried." "Get off my property, Terrence." He and Shauna got in their truck and left. The police stayed to make sure they were really gone, then gave me their card. "Ma'am, if they come back without your permission, call us immediately. And you might want to consider getting a restraining order. This kind of behavior usually escalates." After the police left, I sat in my house shaking, not from fear, from anger. Terrence had actually tried to force me to move, had shown up with a truck, ready to pack my belongings and take me to assisted living whether I agreed or not. I called Marcus and told him everything. "Mom, this is beyond harassment now. This is attempted kidnapping. He was trying to physically remove you from your home against your will." "What should I do?" "We're getting that restraining order. Today, I'm calling Patricia right now. And Mom, I think it's time we told the whole family exactly what Terrence has been doing. Not his version. The truth." "The truth?" "Everything. The fake repairs, the plan to sell your house and keep the money, the false Adult Protective Services report, hearing the care management company, showing up with a moving truck. All of it. The family needs to know who Terrence really is." That evening, Marcus sent an email to our entire extended family. He detailed everything Terrence had done, attached documentation. The inspection reports showing the house didn't need repairs. The social worker's report showing the APS complaint was false. The police report from that afternoon about the moving truck incident. The subject line was, "The truth about Terrence's concern for his grandmother." The email was detailed, factual, and damning. Marcus explained how Terrence had planned to defraud me out of $330,000 by lying about repair costs and property values. How he'd filed false reports when I refused to go along with the scheme. How he'd tried to force me into assisted living so he could sell my house. Marcus ended the email with, "My mother is a 79-year-old woman who immigrated to this country with nothing and built a life through hard work. She bought her house with money she earned cleaning other people's homes. She speaks with an accent, so some people, including her own grandson, assumed she was stupid. They assumed she wouldn't understand conversations happening around her. They were wrong. My mother understands everything. She's sharp, capable, and fully able to manage her own affairs. What she's not able to do is trust her grandson anymore, and I want the family to know why." The responses started coming within hours. My daughter Beverly called, crying, "Mom, I had no idea. Terrence told me you were confused and refusing help. He made it sound like he was trying to protect you. I didn't know he was trying to steal from you." My sister Pearl called from Jamaica. "Bernice, Marcus sent me the email. That boy tried to thief your house. After everything you did for him, Bernice, you can't let him get away with this." Other family members sent messages of support. Some apologized for believing Terrence's version of events. A few defended him, saying family should work things out privately, but they were in the minority. Angela, Terrence's sister, sent me a message. "Grandma Bernice, I'm so sorry. Terrence told me you were being stubborn and refusing help. I didn't know he was lying to you about the house. I'm ashamed I believed him without asking for your side. I love you and I support you completely." But the most important response came from my granddaughter through Beverly. My granddaughter Natasha, who was 26 and worked as a social worker. Natasha called me directly. "Grandma Bernice, I read Uncle Marcus's email. I work with elderly people who are being financially exploited by family members. What Terrence did to you is textbook elder abuse. And Grandma, I want you to know you did everything right. You documented everything. You protected your assets. You didn't let him gaslight you into thinking you were confused. You're amazing. Thank you, baby, but Natasha, this is hard. Terrence is my grandson. I raised him. I loved him, and he tried to steal from me. I know, Grandma, and I'm sorry, but you can't let guilt make you vulnerable. People like Terrence, people who think they're entitled to other people's assets, they don't stop unless they're forced to stop. You're doing the right thing by protecting yourself. Your Uncle Marcus wants to get a restraining order. You should. Grandma, Terrence showed up at your house with a moving truck. He was going to take you out of your home against your will. That's not love. That's control. You need legal protection from him. The next day, Patricia filed for a restraining order on my behalf. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, I did something I'd been avoiding. I visited Terrence and Shauna's house, not to reconcile, to understand. I knocked on their door. Shauna answered, looking surprised and uncomfortable. Miss Bernice, what are you doing here? I need to talk to Terrence. Is he home? He doesn't want to see you, not after you called the police on him. I'm not leaving until we talk. You can let me in, or we can have this conversation on your doorstep where your neighbors can hear. Shauna reluctantly let me inside. Terrence was sitting in the living room. He didn't stand when I entered. What do you want, Grandma? I sat down across from him. I want to understand. Terrence, why did you try to steal from me? You have a good job, Shauna works, you have money. We have debt, Grandma. Credit cards, student loans, the mortgage, we're drowning. And you're sitting on almost $400,000 in home equity that you're never going to use. You live simply. You don't need that much money. It's just sitting there. So you thought you had a right to it. I thought family should help family. You have money you don't need. We need money we don't have. It seemed fair to access some of it. By lying to me, by trying to sell my house and steal the money. I wasn't going to steal it all. We were going to give you $50,000, enough to live comfortably in a small apartment. The rest would have solved our financial problems. Terrence, that house is worth $380,000 or more. You were going to give me $50,000 and keep $330,000. That's not helping family. That's robbery. But you wouldn't have known the difference. Grandma, you don't understand property values or real estate or any of this complicated stuff. We could have told you the house sold for $150,000 and you would have believed us. And there it was, the core of everything. Terrence genuinely believed I was too stupid to understand what my house was worth. He believed he could lie to me and I'd never know. Terrence, I understand everything. I understand property values. I understand that you lied about repairs. I understand you tried to steal $330,000 from me. And I understand that you think I'm stupid because I speak with an accent. You barely speak English, Grandma. You say I clean very good instead of I clean very well. You mix up words. You talk like someone who never got educated. I speak with an accent. That doesn't mean I'm uneducated or stupid. Terrence, I understand English perfectly. I always have. When you and Shauna were planning this at your house, talking in the kitchen while I sat in the living room, I understood every word. You assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation, but I did. Shauna spoke up. How could you understand? You were sleeping. I was resting my eyes, but I was awake. I heard you say I barely speak English. I heard you plan to fake repair problems. I heard you discuss how much money you'd keep. I understood everything, and I went home and documented it all. Terrence looked sick. You've been planning this whole time, setting us up. I've been protecting myself. Terrence, you thought you could steal from me because I'm elderly and speak with an accent. You assumed those things made me vulnerable, but you were wrong. I worked for 46 years cleaning houses for wealthy people who spoke around me like I couldn't understand. I heard business deals, family secrets, everything. Because people hear an accent and think you're stupid. I learned to use that, to be underestimated and then surprise people. So this was all a game to you. This was survival. Terrence, you tried to take my house, my independence, my security, everything I worked for. I wasn't going to let that happen just because you thought I was too stupid to stop you. I'm your grandson. Doesn't that mean anything? It used to. But Terrence, you looked at me and saw a bank account. Not a person. Not your grandmother who babysat you and helped raise you. You saw money you thought you were entitled to. Shauna stood up. Miss Bernice, I think you should leave now. I'm leaving. But Terrence, I want you to know, there's a restraining order hearing in 2 weeks. You showed up at my house with a moving truck trying to force me out. The police witnessed it. The restraining order will be granted. You'll be required to stay away from me and my property. If you violate it, you'll be arrested. You're really doing this, getting a restraining order against your own grandson. You really tried to steal my house. We all make choices, Terrence. These are the consequences of yours. I left their house and drove home. I felt sad but also clear. I'd given Terrence a chance to explain, to take responsibility, to show remorse. Instead, he defended his actions and blamed me for not making my money available to him. 2 weeks later, the restraining order hearing was held. Terrence and Shauna were there with an attorney. I was there with Patricia and Marcus. The hearing officer reviewed the evidence. The police report about the moving truck incident, my statement about the attempted fraud, Terrence's history of harassment. Terrence's attorney argued that this was a family dispute that didn't require legal intervention. Your Honor, my clients were genuinely concerned about Mrs. Thompson's welfare. They may have been overzealous in trying to help, but their intentions were good. Patricia responded, Your Honor, this isn't about good intentions. Mr. Thompson and his wife planned to defraud Mrs. Thompson out of over $300,000 by lying about her house needing repairs. When she discovered their scheme and refused to go along with it, they escalated to harassment, false reports to Adult Protective Services, hearing care management companies without her consent, and finally showing up at her home with a moving truck to force her into assisted living against her will. This is elder abuse, not family concern. The hearing officer looked at Terrence. Mr. Thompson, you showed up at your grandmother's house with a moving truck without her permission. I was trying to help her move to a safer environment. Did she ask for your help? No, but she needs help even if she doesn't realize it. Sir, your grandmother is 79 years old. She owns her own home. She's capable of making her own decisions. You don't get to override her choices because you think you know better. The restraining order is granted. You are to stay at least 100 yards away from Mrs. Thompson and her property. No contact, no phone calls, no emails, no social media messages, no contact through third parties. Do you understand? Your Honor, she's my grandmother. How am I supposed to? Do you understand the terms of the restraining order? Yes. Violation of this order will result in arrest and criminal charges. This order is effective for 3 years. After the hearing, Terrence tried to approach me in the hallway. Marcus stepped between us. Terrence, you heard the judge. No contact. Stay away from my mother. Dad, this is crazy. It's Grandma. We should be able to work this out as a family. You tried to steal her house. You filed false reports. You showed up with a moving truck to force her out of her home. Terrence, you destroyed this family when you decided your grandmother's money was more important than her trust. I didn't say anything. I just looked at Terrence, the little boy I'd loved, now a grown man who tried to rob me, and walked away. Over the next few months, life settled into a new normal. I continued living in my house, maintaining it carefully, managing my own affairs. The restraining order meant Terrence couldn't contact me, which was both sad and peaceful. I started volunteering at a community center, teaching English to new immigrants. People who spoke with accents like me. People who were often underestimated because of how they spoke. Your accent doesn't define your intelligence, I'd tell them. People will assume you don't understand. Let them. You'll be surprised what you learn when people think you're not listening. I also started speaking at senior centers about financial exploitation. I'd tell my story, how my grandson tried to steal my house by assuming I was too stupid to understand what he was doing. Document everything, I'd tell elderly audiences. If family members start talking about your house needing repairs, get your own inspection. If they say your property is worth less than you think, research the market yourself. Don't let anyone tell you you're too old or too confused to understand your own finances. And if someone speaks around you like you can't understand, pay attention, because that's when they reveal their true intentions. After one of my talks, an elderly Vietnamese woman approached me. She spoke with a heavy accent, similar to mine. Mrs. Thompson, my son tell me my house need big repair. He say I should move to his house, let him sell mine. But I think he lying. How I know for sure? Get your own inspection. Hire your own contractor. Don't use anyone your son recommends. Get documentation of your house's real condition and real value. Then you'll know if he's telling the truth or lying. Thank you. I thought maybe I don't understand because my English not good. But you help me see. I understand enough. You understand plenty. Don't let anyone tell you different. 6 months after the restraining order was granted, I received a letter from Angela, Terrence's sister. She wrote, "Dear Grandma Bernice, I wanted you to know that Terrence and Shauna are getting divorced. Shauna filed, claiming Terrence had been hiding debt from her and making financial decisions without her input. Terrence is struggling financially and emotionally. He asked me to reach out to you to see if there was any possibility of reconciliation. He says he's sorry and he wants to make things right. I told him I'd pass along the message, but that the decision is entirely yours. I love you, Grandma. Whatever you decide, I support you. Love, Angela." I thought about it for several days. Part of me wanted to believe Terrence was genuinely sorry, but I remembered his words at his house. You wouldn't have known the difference. He'd believed I was too stupid to understand what my own house was worth. And when I'd proven him wrong, he hadn't apologized. He'd blamed me for not making my money available to him. I wrote back to Angela. "Thank you for the message. I appreciate that Terrence is going through a difficult time, but I'm not ready for reconciliation. Maybe someday, but not now. The restraining order stays in place. I need to protect myself. I hope Terrence learns from this experience. I hope he understands that underestimating people because of how they speak, or how old they are, or what work they did, that's a mistake that costs you more than money. It costs you relationships and trust. I love you too, Angela. Love, Grandma Bernice." 1 year after confronting Terrence, I was sitting in my living room in my house, that I still owned and lived in independently, when I got a phone call from Natasha. "Grandma Bernice, I have news. Remember how I work in elder services? Well, I've been asked to help develop a training program for bank employees on recognizing elder financial abuse. And Grandma, I told them about you, about how you protected yourself from Terrence's scheme. They want to know if you'd be willing to be interviewed for the training materials, to tell your story." They want to interview me. Yes, your story is perfect because you did everything right. You noticed the warning signs. You documented everything. You got professional help. You protected your assets legally. You didn't let anyone convince you that you were too old or too confused to understand what was happening. Grandma, you're a model for how to fight back against family financial exploitation. Okay, I do the interview. The interview was recorded and became part of a training program used by banks across the country. In it, I told my story in my own voice, accent and all. They assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation because I speak with an accent, I said on the recording. They thought because I'm elderly and worked as a housekeeper, I couldn't understand property values or financial schemes. But I understood everything. And I protected myself by documenting their plan, securing my assets legally, and refusing to be intimidated. The training program became very popular. I started getting calls from journalists who wanted to interview me, from other organizations that worked with elderly people who wanted me to speak. My story, the story of a Jamaican immigrant who cleaned houses for 46 years, and then outsmarted her college-educated grandson who tried to steal her home, resonated with people. Especially with immigrants, especially with people who spoke with accents, especially with elderly people who'd been told they were too old or too confused to understand their own affairs. "You showed us that accent doesn't mean stupid," one woman told me after a talk I gave. You showed us that being underestimated can be a weapon. 2 years after the restraining order was granted, I received another letter from Terrence. It was forwarded through Patricia, my attorney, since he couldn't contact me directly. The letter was different from anything he'd sent before. Grandma Bernice, I know I can't contact you directly, so I'm sending this through your attorney. I hope she'll give it to you. I need to tell you something I should have said 2 years ago. I was wrong. Not wrong in how I approached things. Wrong in what I tried to do. I tried to steal from you. I justified it by telling myself you had money you didn't need and I had problems I couldn't solve. But the truth is, I felt entitled to your money because you're my grandmother. I thought family money should be available to family members who needed it. I didn't see your savings as money you'd earned. I saw it as inheritance I was just accessing early. That was wrong. You worked 46 years for that money. You saved carefully and built your wealth. It belongs to you, not to me. And the way I tried to take it, by lying to you, assuming you were too stupid to understand what your house was worth, trying to trick you, that was worse than wrong. That was evil. I treated you like you were incompetent because you speak with an accent. I assumed you wouldn't understand conversations because you're elderly. I thought I could manipulate you because you worked as a housekeeper instead of in an office. Every assumption I made was based on prejudice and arrogance. And every assumption was wrong. You understood everything. You were smarter than me, more strategic than me, and more prepared than me. You outsmarted me completely. And you were right to protect yourself from me. I'm not writing to ask for reconciliation. I know I destroyed our relationship and I don't deserve to have it back. I'm writing because I need you to know that I finally understand what I did. I stole from you. I lied to you. I tried to force you out of your home. Those are crimes. I should have faced criminal charges. The fact that you chose to protect yourself with a restraining order instead of pressing charges, that was mercy I didn't deserve. I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're well. I hope you're still in your house, still independent, still strong. You deserve all of that and more. With regret and respect, Terrence. I read the letter 3 times. This was different. This wasn't Terrence defending his actions or blaming me for not helping him. This was acknowledgement, responsibility, understanding. I wrote back through Patricia. Terrence, I received your letter. I appreciate that you finally understand what you did was wrong. I'm not ready to lift the restraining order or have a relationship with you. Maybe someday. But not now. I am well. I'm still in my house. I'm still independent. I'm still strong. I'm also still teaching people, immigrants, elderly people, anyone who's been underestimated, how to protect themselves from financial exploitation. I use my story to help others. I tell them about the grandson who assumed his grandmother was too stupid to understand what he was planning. And I tell them how that grandmother protected herself by documenting everything and refusing to be intimidated. Your attempt to steal from me became my purpose, to help others avoid being victimized the way you tried to victimize me. I hope you've truly learned from this experience. I hope you understand that people who speak with accents or work blue-collar jobs or are elderly, we understand more than you think. We see more than you realize. And we're stronger than you assume. Take care of yourself, Terrence. Grandma Bernice. Now, at 81 years old, I still live in my house. The house I bought 21 years ago for $85,000, and that's now worth over $400,000. The house my grandson tried to steal by assuming I was too stupid to understand what it was worth. I maintain the house carefully. I manage my own finances. I make my own decisions. And I continue speaking at community centers, senior centers, immigrant groups, anywhere people gather who have been underestimated because of how they speak, where they're from, or how old they are. They assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation, I tell audiences. They spoke in clear English, in normal voices, right in front of me. They assumed that because I speak with an accent, I couldn't comprehend what they were saying. But I understood every word. And that understanding saved my house, my independence, and my dignity. I always end my talks the same way. If people underestimate you, because of your accent, your age, your job, whatever, use it. Be underestimated, be dismissed, be ignored. Because when people think you can't understand, that's when they reveal who they really are. And that knowledge, that understanding, that's power. Don't waste it. My relationship with Terrence remains complicated. The restraining order is still in place. though it expires in a few months. I haven't decided if I'll renew it or let it lapse. Part of me wants to believe his apology was genuine and that someday we might rebuild some kind of relationship. But another part of me remembers standing in his living room listening to him say, "You wouldn't have known the difference." That's the part of me that knows Terrence didn't just try to steal my money. He tried to steal my dignity by assuming I was too stupid to understand what he was doing. And while I can forgive many things, that particular arrogance, that assumption that an accent means ignorance, that's harder to forgive. But I'm at peace, because they assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation. They were wrong, and that mistake cost them far more than the money they tried to steal. It cost them me, my trust, and their place in my life. I won, not through legal battles or revenge, but through understanding, through documentation, through refusing to accept other people's assumptions about who I was and what I could comprehend. They assumed I wouldn't understand the conversation, but I did. I understood everything, and that made all the difference.